many of you will find this to be in bad taste.
Oh.
No, not this podcast. That's the
What an
opening line. Well, it's almost the opening line to The Midnight King by Tariq Ashkenani.
One of the all-time great opening lines, I think, in my opinion.
And that's what we're going to talk about on today's drafting notes. I'm Marco. This is Tariq, obviously. And on drafting notes, we'd like to pick one topic that has been bothering us and focus in on that and discuss it and see if we can offer some semblance of help on that topic. And today's topic is opening lines. Now, opening lines are vital to the book. You know, we always hear how a great opening can decide whether or not an agent is going to look at the letter, look at the rest of the pages or not. You know, you've got that one chance to make a first impression. You want your opening to be super strong. And, you know, I cited your book there, which is actually the actual line. Sorry, I'm just going to read it again. Many of you will find this book to be in bad taste. That's the opening line of the Midnight King, which is a good opening line, I feel. I spent ages on opening.
I totally agree with you. They're so important, and it's that grabby bit, isn't it? You want to grab them from that first line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, well, what is it that you think is important about opening lines? Do you think?
I think. I mean, to expand a bit on that, I think the more books out there than ever before. People are in bookshops and they're picking up stuff and they're looking at the first page. You know, if you haven't been able to grab them by the end of that first page, you've probably lost them. I think you want them to get that first paragraph or two and think, I want to see what happens next. And so I think more than ever the pressure is on there to make that first line as great. And I think looking at some of the famous first lines, we've been looking at some of the famous first lines, or some of our favourite first lines from the books that we like, and you can see, I mean, in that microcosm of one line, I think you can see almost what the book as a whole is kind of represented, the kind of tone that the book will take, the voice that's in that line. I think here's one, for instance. The man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. That's the opening line to The Gunslinger, Stephen King, the first of the Dark Tower books. And I think that in one line sets the mystery of what's going on. You know, who is the man in black?
It's such a clear image as well.
It's such a clear image. It's such a great image, isn't it? That kind of the cinematic shot of this desert and the gunslinger and someone being chased. Who's going on? There's it asks so many questions. It does make you want to read to find out what's going on next.
Yeah, it gives that. I think what is good about that line, and we'll go through some other opening lines as well to show that there's different ways of doing this. But it, as you say, it establishes the voice of the. You know, you immediately buy into, or don't buy in, I suppose, to this author's writing. I think with a great opening line. Yeah. But also it's giving you, it's putting you in that world, but it's also creating mystery, raising a question. Why is who's the man in black? Who's chasing? Yeah. Why is he being chased? Things like that. So, it just puts you into that moment, and you suddenly want to find out. But you know, that is a scene that is almost, you know, in media res, as they would say. You know, you're in the middle of a scene there. But you know, another example, my favourite book is not The Midnight King. I'm sorry. It's The Lies of Loch Lamora, Scott Lynch. As I've said in the podcast before, and this is a very different opening line. This line is: at the height of the long wet summer of the 77th year of Senduvani, the thief maker of Camor paid a sudden and unannounced visit to the eyeless priest at the temple of Perilandro, desperately hoping to sell him the Lamora boy. So that is, you know, it's a much longer line.
Very long, yeah.
You know, so it's a paragraph on its own essentially, but it really sets up what type of story you're getting into, I think. Yeah. At that point.
Yeah. It almost strikes me as one of these lines that which kind of seems to go away from what people advise. You know, what I always seem to see nowadays is short, snappy, grabby stuff, and with a quirk or with something unusual but that's just a really nice kind of lyrical passage almost, like you say, which is still doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's still setting up a mystery. It's still making you say, well, who's this? What's the setting? Who's he talking about? Who's the boy? There's all these things going on in that sense, which you are wanting to kind of unpack as you go on. And I think that's whether your opening line is call me Ishmael, Moby Dick, whether you're 3 words or you're a paragraph. I think you're having to ask that question of what is going on, what is happening next, what are we talking about, what's the story, what's the character, and what's the voice. Like I get the impression, I've not read that book, but I get the impression in
why haven't you read it? I've told you to read it.
I know you told me this Mark this on a monthly basis for the last 5 years or so. And one day I do have it. One day I will read it. But I get the impression from the opening line that his voice is quite, I don't mean this in a bad way, quite wordy, quite longer sentences. It's not short, snappy, kind of hard-boiled prose like a crime novel. It's more flowing, which evokes more of a kind of fantasy vibe
lyrical,
to me,
almost,
lyrical, literary feel to it. So I think in that opening line, I think it does do so much heavy lifting. It sets up your expectations as to what the book will be about, and also how it will sound as you're reading it, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's right. I mean, another opening line that I really love is, well, you tell me if you know what book this is. The sky above the port was the colour of television tuned to a dead channel.
That's Necromancer.
Neuromancer. Yeah.
With William Gibson. Yeah. That's a brilliant. That's such a. I love that image of that static kind of sky. It's brilliant. Yeah. Exactly.
So I mean, I think it's trying to capture that. It is. These lines are doing so much. They're telling you what type of story almost it is, what type of world it is that you're going to be getting into and stuff like that. And that is the difference between a great opening line and a forgettable opening line.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, your favourite book, you just looked up the opening line to that.
Yeah. So that's right. So Red Dragon is a book that I bang on about incessantly, and was when I think about Red Dragon, I think about tense cops and robbers, serial killer, brutal murders, dark, twisty narrative, and yet the opening line to Red Dragon is, Will Graham sat Crawford down at a picnic table between the house and the ocean and gave him a glass of iced tea. It does not at all bring the image of what I have for that book in my head.
I don't know what that story's about. It's not giving me anything.
And then and between the next few paragraphs, it very quickly goes into the fact that they're talking about a brutal murder of a family and he's giving them photographs. And but that opening line doesn't do any of that heavy lifting. So, I mean, it's hard to know sometimes. I mean, that's not enough. That I would have always said that's a bad example of an opening line. Sorry, Thomas. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do any of the things that we're talking about, and yet maybe that's the point of that. It's a kind of a normal-ish opening line, and then maybe it contrasts to the darkness that comes afterwards. I don't know. It's certainly not the opening line I would have gone for.
I mean, let's talk about then what you shouldn't do, I guess, or what you often see or read that you think it doesn't stay with you, and why is that? Often, I think was it Kurt Vonnegut that said, "Start as close to the end of your story as possible."
Yeah, and I think that's great advice.
A common mistake can be to start too early in the book, in a chapter, whatever. You want to jump right to the edge, get the reader wanting to know where are we, what's happening, where are we going, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean it needs to be in media res, because, like, for example, Loch Lamora, that's not really in media res, but it's, if you start with a line like that one from Red Dragon, or someone being woken up by an alarm clock, or
the dreaded dream.
Yeah, something like that. It's not immediate enough. It doesn't really take you into the story. It's not the best path in, I think. And then I think also maybe less opening line, more opening pages. Like try to put all the background
Yes.
setting, the scene and
Yes.
everything
Yeah. Yeah.
in that opening. You don't need to do that. You've got the whole book to do that, to build out your world, your
Yeah.
characters and stuff like that. You want to leave a bit of mystery, in fact, because you want people to read to find out who this is, where they
Totally
are,
agree.
what's happening, sort of a thing.
Yeah, I think that's often something that puts me off books, or I think is a sign of an early draft, or something where you, as you say, you've started your story too early, and you're spending the day with someone before the evening when the incident happens where the story really kicks off. I think you want to start as close to that inciting incident as you can,
Yeah.
because that's what's kicking your narrative off. You want to start as close to that as you can, and then as you say, completely like start with stuff, and don't over explain everything. Don't give all the backstory to everything. You're totally right. You've got the whole book to do that. Let the first 20-30 pages be grabby and stuff's happening, and it doesn't have to be action, but just things are happening.
No, yeah.
There's plot happening. And then after that, then you can slow things down a bit, and you can build more into character. You can let things breathe a bit more. But I think that the opening line, the opening chapter, opening 2 chapters, etc. That I think grab them as tight as you can. Keep it as lean and as tight as possible, and then relax and breathe and let your characters and your plot expand.
Having said that, though, you don't want. I suppose if you take that to the extreme, you don't want it to be totally incomprehensible.
Oh, no,
you don't
no.
want a mystery that is
Yeah.
like, what is going on here? I don't
Oh yeah,
understand what's going on
totally,
here.
100%. And you don't want it necessarily to be action when you don't
No,
know
no,
what the stakes
exactly,
are,
yeah.
who the characters are, and it's
Yeah.
going to mean boring, meaningless action. Which I mean, I'm saying this, and I'm already thinking of examples of books that start with a shootout, and they're great books, but it's hard to do well. I think it's hard to do that stuff well.
I think that's right, and I think another thing that can sometimes happen is that, especially with newer writers, if they're writing, for example, a series or something like that, sometimes I've seen people try and do like a prologue. They open on their prologue, and it's like, I don't know, a big battle or something like that, a confrontation between two characters you've not met. You don't know what's happening. You don't know what the stakes are at all.
Yeah.
And then they've got this idea that this will pay off, but it'll pay off in book 5 of their series. It's like, no, don't do that either. You're trying to grab people for this book, so it has to pay off in this book, and it has to. Even if you don't know, taking that sort of thing as an example, you need to give. If you were opening on a battlefield or something like that, you have to get into give a hint of who the character, who your protagonist is, or something like that. Give a hint of why they're there. What is the stakes that are up here? So I think I guess it's a balance, isn't it? You don't want to give too much away, but you don't want to hold too much back.
No, that's right. You want that tension, right? You want the tension, whether it's action or not, but you want some kind of tension, some kind of stakes. You want, I think, within that first page or two, certainly within the first chapter, I think you want to have an idea of what the stakes are, what the characters are after, and I'm not saying you have to spell out, but I think you want hints of motivation, of stakes, of what the drama is, of where the story might go. Something's happened. There's movement, there's momentum, and it's light. Because you've got so much time to get bogged down into character backgrounds and motivations. And a classic example that I think is a really great example of this is, hang on, let me get the exact one here. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. That line, it's almost a very boring, run-of-the-mill line, but that last word immediately makes you think something isn't right here. There's something different. There's something unusual. Why is it 13? It's that classic questions. There's a mystery. It's a mystery of why was this a different world? Is this a dystopian world, etc. So I think it's drawing you in. It's drawing you in very, very quickly, and I think that is. I totally agree. That is nothing more off-putting for me than a book where I read 20 pages and I'm like, I do not know what is. Still, nothing is really happening. It's not getting me anywhere. And and a lot of it's a lot of it I find actually my earlier drafts are quite like that, and I think I often go back and redrafts, and I'm like, this is all superfluous. This can get moved to chapter 4 when things are quiet.
Yes.
But it's too slow. I need to get there quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think, and that's why it is so, I was going to say for an aspiring author, but I think this is true for any author, because you're trying to sell the book, even if you're, so you want to make people want to keep reading on that first page. If they pick up the book off the table in Waterstones or whatever and open it up, you want them to go, oh, this is what's going to happen, and just draw you into it and get a feel for what the world is in those few words. So I think you should spend a lot of time polishing, honing, let other people read it, get feedback on the opening line, the opening paragraph, the opening page, because it is so vital for making an impression. And I think, I think what you're wanting, if we're sort of bringing together what we've discussed there, which is, you want your voice. Does it sound like the story that you're wanting to tell? And try and get that in there. Try and, as you say, it doesn't need to be action, doesn't need to be anything else, but put some question. Why is, I think Peter Pan's is something like, what is it? Every child except one grows up, or something like that. And it's that except one that is so... all
children except one grow up.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, all
that's a great line, isn't it?
Yeah. It's that except one you want to keep reading, because it's like, what? That's a strange thing. And you want to find out who the child that doesn't grow up is.
And I think having an opening line like that asks a really weird question, or really almost sums up the whole book in that 6 words or whatever, it gives you permission to then almost straight away slow down a little bit and to breathe, because it's done its heavy lifting. I think that's how big and important a first line can be. It gives you that permission to take a bit slower if you've got that killer first line. And I should say that I'm very aware that Devil's Advocate, plenty of amazing books don't follow any of these rules. And,
100%.
And I think ultimately, like all advice, there's no right or wrong answer to any of this. I think this is just the kind of the safest way of doing a really good first line. There's plenty of books which are much slower paced, which are much more lyrical, which are more about the writer, which are lovely written lines, and they make you want to keep reading because they're just so nicely written, or they just present such a nice picture or an image in your head or whatever it is. But it's still grabbing you, even if it's not got that tension or mystery. I think if it's incredibly well written, and it makes you want to keep reading, I guess that's doing the same job. For me, I find that a lot harder. I find it a lot easier to do a kind of something grabby, something plotty, grabby, ask a question.
Yeah, it does. I suppose it does depend to an extent on the type of story you want to tell.
Oh yeah, 100%,
but that's the whole point, isn't it? That's the whole point. Your first line should give a clue as to what type of story it is that you're telling here. So you wouldn't want a super grabby line if it is a sort of slice of life literary novel,
Exactly. I'm going to give you one more.
Okay.
You'll know this one. I'm not going to say this, but you'll know it. And this is okay.
We should say that the clocks were striking 13 is 1984.
Oh, 1984. Sorry, we didn't say that. Yeah. People are like, what the hell is that from? Right. The snow in the mountains was melting, and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we understood the gravity of our situation.
Yeah. That's a great one. Yeah. The Secret History by Donna.
Yes. Yeah. It's a fantastic one. And again, this is a book which I find I get conflicted about, because it's very much a literary book. I think we've chatted before in Adventures of Publishing Land. Recently we had a chat about this. It's very much a literary book. It's not a fast-paced thriller. It's not super pacey, turn a page a minute. It's very slow, but it's wonderfully written. But it does have that kind of through line of kind of.
But there is a mystery there, isn't there?
There's a mystery, exactly. There's a mystery, and I think that first line lets you know, right? Okay, so there's a dead body. Who's Bunny? How is he dead? What happened to him? What is the situation? Why in the snow in the mountains? When did he die? It's brilliant.
Yeah,
It
and
does so much.
it's foreshadowing because you then meet Bunny and you know that Bunny is going to
That's
die
right.
at some point
Yeah,
in the book.
yeah.
So you're reading to
You're
find
building
out.
up to this moment.
you
How
know,
does he die? And then it's
yeah.
who's is it an accident? Is it suicide?
Yeah,
Is it someone done
exactly.
it for? Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, I do. I could probably spend more time in the first line, I think, than other parts of the book. I think if that
Yeah.
I find that such an important part of that book, that opening chunk. And that's a bit that you're going to send to your agents, to your editor, to when you're submitting it, to whoever. It's a bit you might read out. It's a bit that when people look at the Kindle page and look at the sample, that's going to be there.
Yeah.
It's the bit that people can read in bookshops. It is such an important part of the book. That first page, that first few pages. It cannot stress enough how much you want to grab that reader's attention in those first bits. Yeah.
Mm. So, I mean, hopefully, even if our advice was, you throw out our advice. No advice is no writing advice should be taken as gospel. But we've given you a selection of great opening lines there that can hopefully inspire you to write your own. And if you're watching this, these episodes obviously are released early on Patreon for our Patreon backers. You can check out the Patreon. There's lots of great other benefits as well, but they also come to YouTube and the podcast eventually. So when you do watch this, if you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast, leave a comment. Let us know what your favourite opening lines are as well. We'd love to read these because it is always fascinating. I'm just going to end with this. It's not a plug really because I don't even know how easy it is to even get this game anymore. But there's a great game that we've both played called Ex Libris.
Yeah,
and all it is a pack of cards, and it's got opening and closing lines. And one person, like the person asking the question, writes down the real opening line. Everyone writes down their own opening line or finishing line, depending on what you're doing. Everyone hands in the papers, they get mixed up and they're read out, and everyone has to guess the real one.
Yeah,
and it's simple, but it's so great. Yeah,
it sounds very simple and quite dry, but it's one of the most fun games. Genuinely, I think, and you don't have to be a writer. You don't have to, enjoy books. It's just it's a really fun because it's amazing how difficult it can be sometimes, and how easy it is to fool people by just dropping in a certain word or something.
It's a good mix of books as well. In the that you're doing.
Yeah.
Some of them do have ridiculous opening lines, and so you think that can't be real, and it actually turns out to be real.
Yeah, no, it's great.
In fact, I think we played a version of that on our last Christmas special. We made
a beer, Mukherjee, Vascan, and Anna Mazzola.
Yeah. So you can watch that there. But we may do it again in the future as well. But in the meantime, hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope that has given you some inspiration for your opening lines. And we'll be back soon with another drafting notes. And of course, page 1 will be out on Friday with another great guest.
Wonderful interview with someone.
Yes, exactly. Speak to you then.
See you later.